make sure the audio comes through.
It will. So let us know in the chat. We'll let people chime in. Let us know in the chat that you can. Oh, yeah. Hear us okay? Hey. Happy Monday. We are back. We are going live again. We got off our schedule a little bit. I had a centennial, so 100th anniversary of the Spelman College Glee Club concert and reunion. So I really wanted to attend that. So that got us off of our Sunday schedule. But that's okay, because we're here now. Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to be talking about how to, it's going to be part two, put up 4 fingers, part 2 of our conversation on how to earn more than 100K in your herbal business. Tammy is tinkering still with the YouTube Live. We were trying to do YouTube Live actual way, but it just kept spinning wheel of technology.
Just why we're late.
So we don't like being late for our lives, but we couldn't get the tech to work. So we have YouTube Shorts streaming live, and we have our IG folks. So along this conversation, feel free to pop questions in the chat. The first time we had this conversation, we realized how much information that we wanted to cover to help you all who are aspiring herbalists, like really build your businesses, build your empires. If you want an empire, if you want to be huge, and to make it sustainable, because we know that this field is not really a blueprint. You know, we don't have an ecosystem that's kind of built in where you are, you know, let's say you're going to med school and then you go to residency and then you can actually apply for jobs, right? That's not this ecosystem. Same with attorneys. So we really have to develop our own skill set and our own ecosystems if we want this work to be sustainable for us, which we do. We want this to be our livelihood and not just a pastime and not just a hobby. And I've seen tons of folks in the herbal space who eventually have to shut themselves down. Oh, I just heard about it the other day. Do you remember the woman in EAV, the shop that I stopped at?
Oh, yeah, you were talking to her for a while.
Yeah, she closed.
Oh.
So it's like, it's real in the streets. And yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that too. She's a Black woman in East Atlanta Village. And if I recall, the person who's telling me the story correctly, I believe her business just closed like last week or so. And that's, unfortunately, that's not a common and uncommon story within our industry. Marketing is super key. So we're just like helping you all out so that you can, we're giving you the information that we wish folks had given us along our way, along our journey and path to help us make what we love sustainable business, because we've had to figure it out on our own from scratch. So brick by brick. I know, brick by brick, lots of failures along the way. I would say failures. Learning lumps, mistakes, really learning how like general business advice like just does not apply to the herbal industry, to herbalism. So part 1 of our conversation, we covered like mindset work, which is huge. So we have lots of folks who struggle with charging for the knowledge that we do. And that we impart on others, and how we really truly help other people support themselves through their well-being, and like how that deserves to be compensated for. Like it's not just like, oh, just take this herb. Right. It really is a valuable skill set. We feel a huge gap in healthcare that goes unrecognized, where people are not getting the education that they need, you know, in 15-minute doctor's appointments. It's not going to happen. So, you know, we are the ones who can help fill that gap. Some of the metabolic issues, the hormonal issues, like herbs have a really brilliant way of supporting people through complex conditions in ways that pharmaceuticals don't. We fill the gap in terms of like if someone's on drugs, what herbs are safe for them. We have to do all that research. So we have to know a lot. There's a lot on our shoulders. And so that mindset work is really about recognizing how much is on our shoulders, how much we're actually devoting to this work, to your studies, to your investment, to crafting your own ecosystem so that it's sustainable and it supports you and it supports your family, and you're not constantly in the hustle and in the grind. And that mindset work is really important. We were reviewing the last video on part 1, and Tammy was cracking me up. I was like, we are entertaining, because she's just like yelling in a loving way of like, you, I like to say it's passionate. Speak with passion. Like if you are not helping them Or like if you're not helping yourself in terms of like making a sustainable business, you ain't helping nobody.
I mean, but it's true. You can't help nobody. When you're in the mud, how you gonna help someone else get out the mud?
Somebody else get out the mud. So yes, we have our folks on YouTube. Hey, how y'all doing? We have our folks on IG. How are y'all doing? We got the passion, we got the conversation, we're back. So we did mindset work, foundation, so you want to listen to part 1 for that. We also talked about understanding your numbers, profit and revenue, not the same. And you need to be tracking your numbers. You need to know what those financial systems are that are telling you whether or not you're actually making money in this work on your product suite, whatever that may be from. Hey, from Raleigh, New York.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Let us know in the chat where y'all chiming in from. And then we also have a separate video on our YouTube about creating financial systems that work with your brain. And we work very differently when it comes to understanding the numbers. So I feel like that was a really valuable video in helping people like figure out how their brain works to understand numbers, and in 2 different ways. So we're not 8 billion brains as the population on the planet, but it's 2 very different brains, and we were able to finally come up with the financial system and management that works for both of us, all with free tools. Free tools to help you.
Free 99.
The numbers.
Yeah.
So we talked about numbers. You want to listen to part 1 for that. You also want to find that financial systems video on our YouTube as well. And then we started going into, and this is where I got super detailed, the different business models and how they scale. So if you've ever been like following other herbalists and seeing all the things that they do, there's a reason for like these very large ecosystems. And I feel like I didn't understand why that was until we woke up and we're like,
now I understand. Now I see why they have so many.
Now I understand why herbalists do consultations, and why they do courses, and why they have books, and why they teach separate like one-off workshops. Because again, and you have a product line, and again, it's developing that ecosystem from scratch because we don't have a blueprint. And there's going to be fluctuations in seasonality in every part of the ecosystem. So if you want it to be sustainable, while something's going like this, something else needs to be going like this.
Yeah, you need diversification.
But with that said, it can be really exhausting and draining, and having the burnout, especially if you don't have the systems.
It can. Wait, what?
What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to ask you, because generally you're the one who spearheads new ideas for us, and I was wondering if the reason we have all of those pillars are because of diversification, which would be my reasoning, or is it because you're like, I want to try this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and let's see what happens with this. And Tammy, we have to.
I know you have to have this.
Right.
I don't have that much forethought as Tammy to be like, yeah, we need to have this and this and this. No, I think that herbalists too are like inherently super creative. I think that might be something that we don't recognize in ourselves, but like we are creatives. And so when it comes to different formula and like working with people one-on-one, like it's a whole investigative process, like putting puzzle pieces together and trying to understand that, and a really creative and resourceful process to figure out like what's our in for this person in their life, their body, their constitution, and how we can support them in a way that's sustainable. So I think just the ideas just keep bubbling up, and like nature is super abundant and creative too. And it's like, if you're making stuff, you're an herbalist, you're making stuff, and then you want to know, well, I know how I felt taking it. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's really good. It's helped a lot of people. We have to
now you gotta launch it. Right. Like make it available for more people. So I think that's where it goes back to like our 2 brains, where I think that's very helpful to have a variety of things in your ecosystem. But to Tammy's point and to Tammy's strengths, without the systems of that to sustain it, you are like I have a like cartoon in my head of like moving too fast and overwhelmed and exhausted, and then probably not making money either because you don't have time to figure out if what you're doing is actually generating any income.
Right.
So we talked about e-commerce in part 1 as a big ecosystem and like a playbook that if you are in herbal products. So if you're making tinctures and combining and blending teas, and if you're doing body care, and if you're doing what else? Capsules, you are in e-commerce and you are in manufacturing.
Well, you're in e-commerce if you're selling it online.
Selling it, yeah.
If you're not selling online, you are not in e-commerce.
Yeah, you're in
commerce.
You're in commerce.
Right.
You're in retail.
You're in retail.
Brick and mortar scale to wholesale. But our point in that was like, and really what it's about for these sections that we're going to go into is understanding the scalability of it and understanding like the playbook that you need to study, because they all have just like formulas for success. And that's obviously impossible for us to cover every detail of everything, but if that's where you see yourself going, recognize you're in manufacturing and you're in commerce and you're either going to do B2C or you're going to do B2B.
Yeah.
And it's different playbooks. So study the playbook because that will set you up for success for it.
Yeah, I think that's really good language that, again, we'll keep saying this, that we didn't hear, or at least maybe we heard it and we didn't know what we were hearing at the time. But there is a playbook for everything, and find it and follow it.
Find it and follow it, because it's already proven to be successful, and the evidence of that is all the things that you see on the shelves of stores.
Yeah. But
virtual shelves and.
Yeah, I would say to try to the best of your ability to find that playbook and follow it. And I say that because there's something innate, I would say in most people, I know in you in particular, that there's always a ping of I don't want to follow it, or I want to be original, or that doesn't apply to me, or you don't understand my industry. There's all those things, but I think that there's real value in following the playbook as written all the way through, because you're going to save yourself a lot of learning lumps across the way, and then you're going to see, like, here's the thing, you're an individual, and you can't help but have your flair, your personality, your whatever bubble to the surface. That is going to happen regardless. You can't change that. You are who you are. So I would say follow it as much as you can, the way that it's written, to make life easier on yourself. Like I can't express enough that make life easier on yourself. Don't try, like if it already exists, follow it. Don't try to always recreate the wheel.
Yeah, but
and I'm speaking to Salima in the same time in which I'm speaking to all of you.
You know, yeah, about that. We're going to because we also have to pick up Niles. And so we're going to try and cover. This might end up being a part 3.
I think it's going to be a part 3.
But listen to part 1 for those elements so far. And then now it's getting into... did we talk in depth about consultations on the last one?
We did. I remember we left off around brick and mortar because I remember someone asked, unfortunately, right when we were about to talk about brick and mortar, we ran out of time, and that's what they had questions about. And so I do think that that's where we left off.
Yeah. Consultations or brick and mortar, which is not up next on our list. I just want to go in order. I know.
Whose order? They don't see the sheet.
I know, but then because we'll have to do a part 3, I think it'll confuse me if we don't do it in order. So, consultations, we also covered the scalability of that inside of the part 1 video. And so we are going to start with education-based models. And so this looks like the online education space, which has just blown up. This also looks like, just like traditional prior to online education blowing up. This looks like giving workshops, having a location where you do in-person educational experiences. So that can be one-off workshops, that can be presentations, that can be longer programs where it's like, our, training was in person for 12 weeks at a time in different chunks. You can do that as well. And I think that what's really valuable about education, whether you do it online or in person or a hybrid of both, is that you are going to synthesize so much information. You're going to learn so much so that you can really try to understand it and explain it in a way that someone who's brand new to this will understand and be able to utilize it. And so,
well, that's the true measurement of understanding, of learning.
right.
You being able to then,
It's not just spit
teach
it back, but hopefully you've modified your behavior. Like, you're speaking from experience too.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's what learning is.
You think that, what do you think
That
is
learning is like, I have consumed information, I've applied it to my life and changed my behavior based on what I have taken in.
Oh, okay.
But that like synthesis of concepts and being able to explain it in ways that other people can understand, I think that's what it means to be a good educator and a good teacher.
That's a very interesting distinction.
Yeah, that's just my little 2 cents.
All right.
But I think that what I really like education too, because it helps to narrow your focus. I think going to how creative herbalists are, and we have to craft our own ecosystem, so we're following the threads of many different ideas. I have to go do this, and I have to build this, and I have to do that.
Yeah.
I think that when we decide to focus our energies and say, I'm going to do a workshop or a class on diabetes, then for the next several weeks or however long it takes you to develop that workshop, and to do it in a, just kind of a well-constructed way, that really helps you do a deep dive. Like, you're giving yourself your own like boot camp and into this condition, also hopefully supporting an individual with it too, so that you understand, or at least talking to individuals who experience it, because what's on the textbook of those, or what's in the pathophysiology of that versus what a person in front of you might actually be experiencing, it's not always the same. It does not always match. Because people are more complex and have more things going on. So I think that that's been really helpful, because it really focuses the work, where it's like, this is what I'm working on for this concentrated period of time. I'm putting this workshop together. Maybe you have complementary, it helps you learn the herbs too, and like the ones that are strongly supportive for a particular condition or particular aspects of a condition. So that helps your materia medica studies as well. And then the scalability of that becomes, now you've developed, if you think of every workshop, if we're just talking about one-off, that is an asset for your business. You don't have to, when you do it once, and I'm someone who, this, I write every single script. This is the most like off script
thing she does.
Things that I do. I write down every single script of what I'm going to say, and it's really well organized, because I know that I'm developing an asset for the business. If I can do it once, if I've done all the work, like workshops are actually a heavy lift, but once you do it, now you have the opportunity to pitch it to other organizations. We started at the library.
Yeah.
I started at doing workshops for the library system here, and then that became, classes that we offer for I Will a Remedy, or that we do someplace else. Like, once the workshop is developed, it's developed. And that, really think of it, that mindset of like, think of it as an asset for your business, because it's something that you can reuse again and again and again. And then the other scalability of workshops is, or of like long classes, is to do them online. To do them online, because the scalability of that is going from one to many. And that's also really helpful. It kind of is a nice thread from consultation to the person
in the chat. Sorry.
The person in consultations. That's a really good thread from consultations to education, where it's one-on-one to now this group experience. So you're doing a workshop for hopefully more than one people.
Yeah.
More than one people. More than one person. And the scalability of that too is like, as many people, since you've already done the heavy lifting, get as many people in the room as possible, and do it more than once.
And get questions.
Yeah.
Really get people to ask questions. That I don't think that there's a better way than if you can get a chatty group. That's so great.
And I was afraid of that.
I know, but a chatty group is fantastic.
I was really afraid of questions, and of the like, well, what if I don't know the answer? And there are tons of questions that I get that I don't know the answers to. And I think that's the humility, and that's the like, that keeps the curiosity going, where it's like, yes, I don't know the answer to that, but I do have, I believe in the strength of my research,
right,
and of like the resources available to me, the people who are available to me that I can ask this person this question, who works as a physician. Yeah.
But you've also grown in the work. You've
Right.
done a lot of classes, and now you teach at the
Yeah.
collegiate level, and
Yeah.
you have a whole mentorship. So I mean, it also comes with time.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of time. But I think that workshops, like teaching, accelerates your learning in ways that you can't measure.
Right, and I would have to say, out of all of the models, that's my absolute favorite.
And online.
And online.
Be specific is online.
Online education is my absolute favorite model.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you why. 1, there's less overhead.
Yeah.
2, there's less output of cash. And 3, you can make money while you sleep.
Yeah. So that's really, if you think about it as an asset, always record yourself teaching. Figure it out. If it's in person, figure it out. Get your camera set up and your tripod and your microphone. You want that. You're building an asset for your business. And it doesn't matter, like, if it's not a perfect recording, that is an asset for your business that can be repurposed into a digital product. So think education, whether it's in person, whether it's one-off, whether it's online, it's an asset, and it has scalability because it can become content, multi-purpose content, clips of it, and it can become a digital product that you can resell and not have to do again. So you're no longer trading that time for your time for $1, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, you've already done it.
You've done it.
You've already done it. They can also scale into books.
Yeah, depending on the way you write.
Depending on the way you write. So I did a series, as an example, every month of self-care through the astrological sun signs, just kind of focusing on the sun signs. And this was a couple of years ago. But because I write my scripts, and I got to like
Well,
Gemini.
she writes her scripts the way she speaks.
Yeah, I write the way I speak, and I write everything down. And not everybody processes that way. But it was a yearly commitment. And by the time I started with Aries, by the time I got to Gemini, I was like, why did I commit to this? Because now you're like stuck, like you got to do all of them. But it was so great. And because I wrote everything down, an opportunity that came maybe like 2 years after that was for the Shift Network, doing a presentation for the Shift Network. And in addition to the presentation, they like to have bonuses. And I was like, oh, I have this whole series that I can whip into an ebook, and here's my bonus. And it ends up, it's 175 pages. So it's like, there's a level of consistency here too, that it's like commit to a series. Commit to something that's going to make you show up, and do all of the research, really focus your energy and your efforts, launch it, and then it's an asset. It doesn't matter if one person shows up. You do your best for that one person. Always do your best for that one person.
We've done plenty of workshops to one person.
I know, workshops to none. But you want the recording. You've done all that work. You want to share the information. Sometimes people can't show up live or can't show up at that date. But the information, it will always serve you. It really will always serve you. It will definitely always serve other people. So let us know if there's any questions in the comments or questions in the chat specifically about education and that as a model. And then I think sometimes think that maybe online education is maybe declining or getting a little flatline or a little stale, but that is so not true.
I think it's $1 billion business at this point.
It's huge. It's a huge industry, and now you're even seeing it in like the e-commerce space, where really they have a physical product, and within that physical product, there's an educational component to it. So it's like people are really diving into education because the information age is over. People want folks who have the synthesis of the information, who can communicate it in very clear ways so that you can go further faster. So don't at all think that Online education is dying. Doesn't matter how many online courses you may have signed up for and not actually participated in. You are not everybody. You know what I mean? In terms of like that behavior, we can't always think of our customers as having the same behaviors that we do. People love learning, that's never going to end, and they want good teachers who can help them go further faster. And just because, like, even just the online space for herbalism has blown up, there is always space for you. There's going to be ways that you use the herbs that are unique to you, how you know them. There's going to be the conditions that you've supported yourself with specifically, and you can help coach somebody through that. And then if you're, what's the other thing I'm going to say? Just the way you teach, your style, like that's going to resonate with people. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There are plenty of people for you who are aligned with you. So we have a question in the YouTube chat. Hi, if you're referring to online herbal education, there are some really great resources out there. Yeah, I've encountered some of your chats before and they are really good. Oh, thanks. So yeah, if you have any questions about education, whether it's online, in person, combination of both, let us know in the chat. And then, oh, this is actually a really good point too, because something about, and we talk about this in our business of herbal, becoming an herbal entrepreneur inside of Herbal Medicine for the Soul. If you also look at and study just the ecosystems of some of the larger, just herbalists who are out there, and how they're able to make their ecosystems sustainable, you're going to notice that what they also have is something that's higher ticket. So everything is not, here's a $15 tincture, here's a $10 ebook. There's low ticket, and that's really what low ticket is. It's kind of, I don't know, let's just say it's under $100. Mid ticket in that 100 to 1,000, I think. Yeah, and then high ticket is 1,000 and up. So that is mentorships, that's apprenticeships, where you're getting a deeper level of support and a blueprint, and you really have access to that person as your teacher as well. So that we have that under education, because I think if you start studying people's ecosystems, and we have that too, that is a common thread of the ones who survive, because they you need everything else is really going to fluctuate, and you need something that generates enough cash flow so that you can do all the other things
that you want to do.
So developing, but I think that's also like a progression too, right? Where you're building the skills to be able to feel confident enough to do something high ticket, right? What do you think? Or not.
I think it really depends on the person and their level of comfortability with the material that they're teaching. And there could be, you keep getting deeper in the work the more you do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really personal. I think it depends on each person.
Yeah. Of
how deep they want to go, what they want to offer, and what they consider a high ticket price. And if it's what the market will bear. If someone will pay for it and they're giving good information, then then so be it. I think it's really about the person.
That's what I meant.
Oh, saying the same thing.
It's about the individual. Yeah. But I think what do you think about in terms of like having that as a part of your ecosystem?
I think it depends on the person. If you have, again, everything's gonna depend on the person, but I think you have to know who you are. Don't put it in your ecosystem if it's not who you are, and it's gonna be a stretch for you to show up in that way.
That's true. That's a good point.
Right? So if you're saying, oh, you have to have this in your ecosystem, and I'm not that type of person, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh, I love to educate and I really want to do this, or I really want to bring people forward and I want to have something deeper in terms of teaching, then absolutely go for it. I would for any of these models, really, I would really encourage people to honor who you are more than what someone says you should do. Yeah. And do that first. It doesn't mean like the other things you might want to, but do that first as your first entry. Because a lot of times you'll be like, well, I did this and I made $100,000 in my first year. So someone might be like, oh snap, I'm going to do that too. So I can make $100,000 my first year, but you're not in alignment with that. Like that's not who you are. So I would say, and not everyone is a teacher.
Yeah. But I would counter that in our field.
I know, that's what you say.
That. I think that every herbalist is an educator to some degree. Because even think about before we thought of ourselves, or before I thought of myself as an educator, and we just had our product line, and we were doing markets in Brooklyn. How many questions? It's how many questions?
I mean, that's true. You do get asked a lot of questions.
You get asked a ton of questions, and it might be about your products, but then that turns into, oh, you know, I learned about this plant. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
I think inherently, I think that that's a space that herbalists need to adopt, is that first and foremost, we're educators. Now, how you decide to incorporate education into your work, that's totally different. But so many people are not aware of plants. So many people are still like not, they're really in the modern pipeline. And I think we all like think that because we follow other herbalists and all that stuff, like everybody knows this stuff, and it's just like no. We're such a small group. Like we still have people who come in who don't drink tea, don't know how to make tea. This is their first experience with it. So even that, just explaining how to make a tea, how do you take it consistently so that you actually see results. That's education. So I think we really do have to get comfortable with that being like the herbalist, educator. Yeah. And that's where I think going back to like even the e-commerce space or the product space where people are tying in education, I think everyone's kind of realizing that the more that you can tell people about your products and other ways that they can use it, the more you build that brand loyalty.
And the trust.
Yeah. But how you do it, these are all options, but
of ways to get into it.
Of ways to get into it, but also understanding like everything back to the commerce has its playbook.
Yes.
Education has its playbook as well, and you want to study that. So it's kind of like based on what are you leaning towards, if you want to start with, study the playbook, follow the playbook. As we were saying.
Start
and then
there.
you'll pivot from there. I think there's that element of like, you're going to pivot.
I mean, yes. If you're in business long enough, you're going to pivot.
You're going to pivot. What was the other thing? Speaking and thought leadership.
This is probably my second favorite.
Go ahead.
Well, you're the speaker. So I like getting you up on stages. I like you going on panels and doing curated talks. I think that for this work, it helps for people to see it in a different way. I think it's really important when you take a topic and the way you break it down and make it pretty simple to understand and then go out into an area. It's one thing when you're speaking to colleagues and other people within the same mindset. It's something quite different when you just go like do a talk at a library and everyone is at different stages and you have skeptics and you have people that want to learn but don't understand, you have all of this. And so I think that putting you in those types of situations are good in terms of helping people understand what herbalism is and how that looks. But from a business perspective, it puts you in front of new people, which is always great, but it stretches you. And so you have to find new ways based on an audience. You have to find new ways to connect. And you need to find new ways to connect with multiple people within the same audience, right? So you have to be able to talk to someone that is way up here and is more of a peer, and then someone that's down here that's like, I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't agree with any of this. I think that this is all hooey and and that's that. But I have seen you enough throughout this journey that when you're in those rooms, not only do you own the room, but you elevate the knowledge and you see people kind of come together and at the end, ask really thoughtful questions that stretch you, but also not changing their mind, but opening their mind to new things. And I think that's really important for this to continue as a business. And I think that's very important for the way not to get too political, but the way our healthcare system is moving. I think it's really important just to have a more of an open view of what could be.
Yeah, but break it down for people. I don't know if people this is the question that came up for me, what's the difference between education and like doing workshops versus this speaking and thought leadership that you're talking about?
Well, speaking and thought leadership are like conversations, right? So right here, we're having a conversation. This isn't a course. We're not going to have a course. We're going to tell you our life experience and we're going to share it with you. Or like what you did with University of Louisville, you're going to take two topics and you're going to meld them together to show the parallels and then present it. You're going to do a podcast. I find online education to me is here you have high blood pressure. Here is what high blood pressure is. Here's how you can manage it. Here are herbs for it. Here, it's like a protocol. It's an understanding. It's that. Thought leadership is asking you to expand what you think about a particular topic, and I'm going to give you information to help you expand and bring you into a new paradigm, perhaps. Whereas online education is education. I believe it to be topic-based going forward. But I think that they go in tandem because if you can speak about these, what could be more abstract topics, and then bring it down into a very easy to understand way, then someone could say, well, she must be a great teacher. How can she teach me about something that's quite linear, right? It's kind of like you have high blood pressure. Okay, this is the fact. You have high blood pressure. Here's how you get it. Da, 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 da. So that's the difference to me.
And then the price point's different.
The price point is different because it's a
paid speaking engagement.
It's a lot more. I don't want to say it's a lot more work. It's different, and those types of speaking engagements generally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not something. It's something that is curated for this audience, and that's it. It's not something that is on repeat to just like sell the replay.
Repeat, like a workshop.
Yeah. So that's one time. That's curated. That's just for this audience, and now you go into the next.
Like a signature talk.
Yeah.
Like, so you all don't see my signature talks on the internet because that becomes another pitch to another organization. And so what Tammy's referring to at University of Louisville, so I did a workshop which was on PCOS, we've done 3, but PCOS, endometriosis, and fibroids. That, small group setting, here's the condition, she's saying, here's the condition, here's what modern medicine does, here's the differential diagnosis, here's what herbal support looks like, here's the diet, here's the lifestyle, here's a plan to get you from A to B. And now the presentation, which was a separate event, that was for a broader audience, and that was my talk was on how herbs heal the gap. And it's basically about how we need to, especially African Americans, we need to reclaim herbalism as a part of our primary care, because this is our history and our lineage and our legacy, and actually a huge part of how we survived the South and how we survived slavery, and bridging those connections for people. And so it has this historical piece, it has this modern piece, and it's like bridging the gap, because modern care for us, the reason why our health outcomes are so bad is not because we are biologically different, but it's really because of how our system was constructed to not serve our health care. But what we did was we were expert herbalists. And so we need that same skill set today. So that's kind of what like Tammy's talking about. So you're bringing these concepts together to presenting it in a new way.
Yeah, but you're not going to find, when you look through our courses that you can purchase, you can't purchase this talk. Like, you're not going to see this talk anywhere.
Right.
Unless Salima is invited to a larger arena, and then that talk would happen.
Right. So it's really like thinking about if you want speaking to be a part of your ecosystem, developing what is going to be your TED Talk, developing your signature talks. So again, it's another playbook where there's a formula and success leaves cues.
Yeah.
Where they might not be herbalists that you're figuring out who has this kind of ecosystem that does it, but you need to find some speakers that you admire and study their ecosystems and apply that playbook to what you want to do if this is something that you want to do. Because the speaker circuit is huge. It's massive, and it gets you into different types of rooms, and it pays better than a $16 tincture, obviously.
Well, that's a different model.
Right, it's a different model. So again, we're laying out some models.
Right. Because I was like, that $16 tincture can scale and be a multi-million-dollar business.
But that's a different model. That's a different model. And then, what's the other one? Digital products and guides. So the digital space is huge. So we kind of talked about this a little bit because it is an extension of education where you create, so like all of our online classes, I guess I consider more of the one-off workshops. If you go to www.iwillaremedy.com and our all courses, those one-off workshops are like digital products. Ebooks are digital products, but I think there's a lot of templates and stuff that can be created specific to the herbal space and like how to help people manage their business. How do you create your own, plant monographs or materia medica documents? How do you do the financing for it, like the labeling? There's so many templates that can also be created for our industry.
And other people have done them and do them.
Yeah. So this is like you creating a digital product and then offering it. I even saw one cool, even graphic design templates, although Canva takes up a lot of that work. But there was another company that was specific to like herbalism and helping with templatizing some of their marketing efforts too, like some of their graphic design and pictures. What are some other ones that you can think about?
I mean, you've hit them all. Those are all the things that we've done.
And then ebooks are huge. Ebooks are huge.
I know, and you wouldn't think so.
I know. Ebooks are huge because if you're thinking ahead too, and you're creating ebooks from ebooks or whether it's templates, anything. If you're creating this like digital resource ecosystem, then you also have the bundles that come with that.
Yeah.
And so there's an element of like the commerce model, the e-commerce model that's in here when it comes to offering people deals and sales that's kind of built into it too. Because that's just around like buyer psychology. But let's say you develop 3 ebooks and then they're each developed, you sell them individually, and then in 6 months you're like, now they're bundled together at a lower price. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just another way of putting it out. And then sometimes, but this also goes back to why you create a lot of different types of content and why you record everything. Because even when you set an ebook, you could complement that with a video. So you'll get a free video talking about whatever you're talking about, right? So it's also making people feel like they're getting more bang for their buck, right? So it's like, okay, I'm getting a lot here. And, you want it to be of value. But there's a whole psychology of how to sell.
Yeah, you gotta learn it.
That's one. And then there's blueprints of how to sell your digital product, whatever that digital product is. And there's a lot of different steps that have to happen in order for you to have a successful launch. It's not just I signed up for a service, I uploaded the course, I put out a call on my IG that now I have that, and now I sit and wait. And it's like, no.
Right. The marketing piece, that's a whole other thing, because the marketing piece is what connects a lot of these dots, because you have to build a community. There's no more build it and they will come.
You gotta build it. You gotta talk to them. But you gotta I mean, we're really only in this space. So I can't speak to any other business type, but you really have to build trust. You really have to build trust, and you have to let people know you're gonna be there. Yeah. That there's longevity, that you know what you're talking about, that you care. There's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of feels. You'll encounter people that have been through
so much,
an insane amount, and I mean, I don't know how else to describe this work of how much is required of you. And that is part of the business, right? A lot of business talks want to talk about the blueprint and the type of business you're going to have. But I think what has to also come up in a business talk, especially for herbalism, is the amount of energy that will be required of you to show up. That it's because it's not just bottle these tinctures and sell them, or do this consultation. There's a lot that comes up, and I really do want to, as we're talking about the type of business that you want to choose, you also have to think of the type of person you are and how you can show up without burnout. Yeah. Because the burnout is real. And I mean, you just, at the top of the call, you talked about herb shop in EAV that closed. You see other people that they're like, we're closing our doors. And you see other people that are like, I have to take a break. And it's not always because they weren't making money. And it's not always because the business model wasn't sustainable. A lot of times it's, I don't have it anymore inside of me. I'm physically drained. I'm physically exhausted. And I think we also talk about this a lot of how, I know I talk about it a lot. How can you make money in your sleep? And I talk about it from in that way to try and lower the amount of stress. To be like, okay, like when you sleep, like really sleep, right? Really rest. Be able to take a day off. Things like that. So I just wanted to interject with that as we talk about choosing a business model, understanding what comes with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Brick and mortar. Oh, because that's awful.
That's my least favorite.
Yeah, that's my least favorite. That's probably what most people think being an herbalist is too. It's like that you're gonna have your own herb shop.
Yeah, you can have your own herb shop. I think it's about the person. I know for me, I always what's the term? I had rose-colored glasses on when it came to a brick and mortar shop. I was always like, oh, it's gonna be so great. It's always gonna be full, and people are gonna come in and blah 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 blah. Again, there's a playbook. You have to operate in a different way. And so once we opened our brick and mortar, I realized really quickly, I was like, oh, I don't like this, right? And it's really, I just don't like it. And I don't like having to be someplace at a particular time. And this is why I talk about your personality. I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's my personality.
Seeing the Sag in Tammy?
And so that's why it doesn't fit for me, right? For someone else, it could be beautiful. They could love it. And the other thing for me, after starting with education, the amount of overhead that you have for a brick and mortar, I don't like. When we started in education, and the overhead was very low, and I like that a lot. And so then we expanded, and now we have a brick and mortar shop, and the overhead is super high. And so the thing with the brick and mortar is you have to have things to sell, which means your cash flow operates differently. It means you have to put out a lot more before it comes in. Whereas in the education space, the way we have set it up for ourselves, you don't have to put out as much to wait for it to come back in. So those are the reasons why I don't like it. Now, that's just a personal preference. I know plenty of brick and mortar herb shops that do fantastic and, you know, are bumping and full. That's not to say that they can't be, but it also is staff. You're gonna, it would become quite cumbersome to manage a brick and mortar all on your own and without in-person staff. And so that's another thing of thinking about your staffing. And at first you might not be able to afford staffing, so it could very well be a one-person shop. You might need an investor, so you might start thinking about taking capital to get you going. So for a brick and mortar, there's a lot to consider, and I personally find it to be a bigger risk.
For sure.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, because you were talking about in part one of this class that it's like your model has to support two households, you and your family, and the business, which is whether you have a brick and mortar or not, it has to be able to support that family as well. And to Tammy's point, when you have a location that you are now paying rent for, that overhead goes like that. It skyrockets from day one, from the moment you start, the moment you sign that lease. You are...
And it's a multi-year lease for commercial.
It's a multi-year lease,
It's very rare, at least in our experience, it's very rare to find a month-to-month for business. It's a 3-year lease, 5-year lease, 10-year lease, and up.
And then like the inventory part, and like if think about when you go into a store and if you see, there's a reason why every corner is covered with products, even if they're more minimalistic. There's a reason. That's an intentional kind of way that they like line their shelves. But I think the perception of when people walk into stores and the shelves aren't full, that the business isn't doing well.
Right.
And it could be like it's that consideration of brick and mortar. You have to put out a lot of money for the inventory to put it on the shelves so that the shelves are perceived as full, so that they are full, and then people have options of what to buy. So that's a whole other skill set that we really didn't want to develop our time and energy into, of like, how do I learn retail management or inventory management or whatever it's called. But that's the playbook. You want brick and mortar, the playbook for scalability is retail. And retail means set hours. Somebody needs to be there, because how frustrating is that when your Google hours say one thing and the customer comes to the door and you're not there. So that's a different level of commitment. But the people who love it because they like the hustle and bustle of people coming in, creating the space that has a cool vibe. Like I think we were halfway thinking like, we're gonna, like the room we're in, we were like, this is gonna be our retail area when we planned it out. But our space has really always been our headquarters. Like it's our headquarters where we can do our work, and we're no longer doing our work from home.
In our garage.
Like in our garage. Like we grew to get out of the house. So we have a community area, we have a commercial kitchen, we have the apothecary where the plant work is happening, we have an office space, and we have what is not our retail space but is our YouTube studio. And then we have like a retail wall. So we did this little kind of like hybrid of like, here's some hours that y'all can come in if you want to shop in person, but everything is really on our website. But our hours are not standard because we do a lot of teaching and a lot of other work. So it's like 3 days a week, catch us or order online, which is really our preference.
Please order online.
But thinking too, like that other part of like somebody has to answer the phone, like a one-person shop for brick and mortar, that's hard.
It is.
The customer in, you have the phone ringing, someone needs to be checked out, someone else is walking in. And that's happened even just in the limited hours that we have done.
Yeah, and I know, and for brick and mortar, a lot of the people that I know that have opened a brick and mortar, that's when they get capital. And that's a different beast. You got a boss.
You got a boss, and now your profits are split.
Yeah, because they want their money back.
Mm-hmm. And on whatever the terms of that timeline is.
With that said,
it's great. It's a model.
If it's a model, and if you want to do it, I don't know how well. I mean, I'm just being honest. I can't speak like super excited about it because as I said, it is my least favorite, which is interesting because I really fought for it. I really wanted it.
Yeah.
When we lived in Brooklyn, I wanted it.
Yeah.
And then when I was being honest about who I was like, I can't be boxed in. I was like,
Sagittarius. Through and through. She's got 3 planets in Sagittarius.
I'm like, I can't be boxed in. I was like, I hate having to show up the time you tell me to show up.
Which is funny because you have so much retail experience.
I do have a lot of retail experience.
But other things, the scalability around having a space, you do have some options too in terms of like if you have extras, you can hold classes there, so that becomes a nice like hybrid situation. You can, depending on where you are, like we don't do it because we don't like to share, but you can
rent your space.
You can rent your space to other people. Like Atlanta has a booming and growing movie industry here, so they're always looking for spaces for shoots and stuff. So that could be a consideration. It's really thinking about like people like spaces, conference room areas. Sometimes businesses like to have retreats off site, so you can use your space for that.
We've done that before.
So you can think about other uses of your space as well. And like in Atlanta, I mean, movies they pay great. They'll pay you $5,000 to use your house for a week.
I know. But it's
like
a commercial space, and so you have to look at your lease because a lot of times written into the lease is you have to get permission and or you have to pay a fee in order to have a movie shot or a commercial or whatever in your location. It just depends on your lease.
I will say, like, having a brick and mortar or headquarters, that also opens you up, I think, to other local opportunities based on where you are. So think like there's about 7 businesses in this little area, this strip that we're in, and a lot of them are wellness focused in different ways. But like that could become an event if we all felt like coming together to do an event. But like those local city or neighborhood festivals, those are sometimes things that people can participate in, like business associations within the community, like the Decatur Business Association. So it depends on how like networking you are and community driven that you are, that having a retail location opens up other doors. And people tend to ask that question too. It's like, oh, where's your shop? When they hear you're an herbalist. So I think it's a model worth considering for folks. And I think we're gonna have to do another part 3.
But we can end on retreats.
We can end on retreats and healing experiences. Travel is huge. What are you laughing? Why are you smiling?
I didn't laugh. I was like, it's fine. You said travel is huge. And I want to, where are you going with this?
Where are we going? I know. Question. We're doing our first retreat for Herbal Medicine for the Soul students only in June in upstate New York on a farm. It's going to be amazing. It's like 127 acres. Talk about farm to table, like no BS. No, like, farm in California to table in New York. No, this is from outside to your plate, made by a chef. Super excited. Plant walks, medicine making,
relaxing, fireside chats.
And of course that like availability, so the students have access to basically pick my brain.
So ask me all the questions
for 4 days. But we are dipping into that space. We've been wanting to do this for a really long time. And I think that even just post-COVID, still people have the urge. They want to gather more.
Yeah.
They want to gather more in person. We get that question all the time too of like, do you teach in person? And we largely don't. Like we've done some in person stuff and it just ends up being more challenging. Yeah. To manage, like we really like online. But we are starting to curate experiences because herbalism is a really experiential practice and process. I do always have my hands in the plants, but other people don't feel as comfortable, even when they're learning herbalism, to like go outside, start identifying plants, start learning botany just on your own, harvesting, foraging. So we're gonna do more of that.
Yes.
It's fun, and that's a big space because people do like to gather, and I think plants bring people together in really fun ways because there's always something to do collectively together because you can make some types of herbal preparations, which makes it really fun.
Oh, that's right. We're going to do some herbal preparations also.
Yeah, we're going to harvest milky oats, which is like super precious medicine. There's a small window of it being ready to harvest.
It's a super, like they had to plant it just in time so that it was ready for us when we arrived.
When we arrive, to be able to harvest that. And then everyone can take home some milky oats tincture. But so that's going to be a lot of fun. It helps people to get their hands into the plants because it's really immersive. I think I do get a little bit frustrated with the online learning space where it's not really immersive classes. Like we've structured Herbal Medicine for the Soul and Family Pharmacy, the two signature programs that we have, to encourage you heavily to get into your kitchen and practice making the medicine.
Yeah.
And some of these other programs that are like online and all you did was watch, 3 videos and talking about here's a certificate, now you're a certified herbalist. Excuse me? You didn't even make tea.
Oh boy.
I know.
Oh boy.
Get me hot.
Oh boy.
Like, you didn't even
make
make tea. But that's like there's no real understanding for people who have not tried the plants. I know that 100%. You can call yourself all you want, but if you do not understand what plants feel like in your body, nope,
and it's cheap.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work, and you'll get got. You will, because as soon as somebody asks a question, you're not going to be able to answer a more detailed question.
Yeah, but I think retreats are a really great space because it's an intensive, so it's 4 days a week or what have you. You're in person with someone, and it is kind of like getting to live with them for a period of time. So it's not just learn, but it's I don't want to say it's a more relaxed environment for you to organically take in the information, right? So you might be doing a stroll through the milky oats, and it just was kind of like this, what comes to you in that moment, and you talk about it. And I think it's a bit more relatable. And I think that sometimes when someone can, I always do this, like can touch and feel you, that it's like, oh, you're here, you're a person. I think that there is a deeper connection. Yeah. Now, I say that we're doing this retreat space also because our audience is global. And so if you're global, people can travel to see you, but it's a way for anyone within our community to come and basically like hang out with Salima for 4 days and me. I mean, we'll all be there to hang out for 4 days and like really get something out of you. Like conversation in person is different than teaching a class online. And I think by adding this retreat as a complement to our course is a really good idea. I don't know if we would do, and who knows, time tells, if we would just do retreats outside of companions to our course. Yeah. Because it's really, like you said, if you're not doing the work, if you're not in the plants, this is kind of a moot point, like what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, we want to hear your experiences with the plants too. And then on our radar for a long time, we are going to do a retreat in Cape Verde.
That's where that was going to be our first one.
That wasn't our first. But New York feels like a good first one.
New York feels like a great first one.
Before we go to West Africa. But yeah, that is another part of the ecosystem that you can think about adding into your own. So we hope we've given you some really great ideas to get started. Just thinking about as you plan out your herbal business, your herbal ecosystem, perhaps your herbal empire, depending on how large you want to be. Yeah, watch part 1 because that gave a lot of good gems too, and then there'll probably be a part 3 because we have more stuff to talk about. What do you think?
There will be a part 3 because we've got a whole. I haven't read through all of this, but we've got a whole other section. Oh, that's another section to talk about. Yeah. But before we go, tell the people of that you just launched.
Oh yes, a VIP day. So this is going to be for the herbalist who is in business. Like whether you have products or courses or workshops, if you're in business, you're generating, you have offers that are proven to work, and you are maybe feeling stagnant or maybe feeling frustrated or just on the struggle bus, living client to client, and you really want to know how to grow your business in a sustainable way and get those business pillars in place, have someone audit your business. I'm going to do, within this VIP experience, I'm doing a business astrology reading. I love astrology. That helps me understand people so well. Working with another group, and I'm like, I need your chart. I need your chart so I know. So I know who I'm talking to. So I know what your gifts are. So I know what your tension points are, where you get yourself entangled. But to be able to look at your astrology chart through the lens of business, that's the keys to your castle. When you know, like, oh, these are my gifts, and these are the gifts that I should be offering in my business and how I should be structuring it. So that's going to be a big part of the VIP experience. And basically what it is one-on-one. You and I did this last year with Victoria, and it was just so good. And it's so good to see the growth of Victoria's business since. So we're doing only three before I have to close the calendar off, but it is one-on-one for 6 hours over 2 days. So 3 days, 3 hours on one day, 3 on the next. The agenda is all based on what you want to focus on within your business. But of course, looking at your product suite, I'm trying to think of things. I should have printed it. Just sent an email about it. But looking at your current ecosystem,
I think the astrological chart on its own is worth the whole thing, because that's going to tell you the type of person you are, and that's really going to, I think, really going to help guide where you put your energy. Some people, like, are you going to be great in front of the camera? Are you going to be great as an educator? Are you going to be great as this, great as that? Like, we can see those kind of insights inside of the chart just based on who you are. What are some of the things? You can work on your content strategy so that you are not burning out. Content can be so much easier than I think people make it. Your business pillars and what those KPIs are. So KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. So that's really looking at your business activities and measuring if they are helping you grow. And if they're not helping you grow, you can do the percentages to know, are we doing those percentages to know, like, oh, this is what I need to work on because this is where people are dropping off. Or this is where I'm not making the sale. So I know that something about my pitch needs to improve. So key performance indicators are really important. What else? Mindset and worthiness work. Oh, I was just going to say that's really important because you're not spinning your wheels. It's really telling you where to look. Instead of, it's not working and I'm going to recreate the whole thing. And it's like, don't recreate the whole thing because it's not the whole thing.
It's not the whole thing, mindset and worthiness work, again, we don't need no more broke healers. We need people who are fully equipped, who are skilled in this work, but also have the mindset to be able to thrive and succeed and be worthy. Know that you are worthy and deserving of prosperity and of abundance. Especially through this assignment that you feel called to. Like, why would you be called to something that you're not going to be supported in? So we got to squash that. Financial systems that work with your brain. Because again, we talked about that a little bit, where it's like, how can we work so differently, we think so differently, which is great, and can also be super frustrating because it's like there's things that she's good at, things that I'm good at, and things that we're both bad at. And then we're clashing. So everyone has the ability to manage finances, and we can figure out what's the best way for you to manage your finances. Really good clues in your astrological chart on that as well. And then leveraging AI, and not leveraging AI. We're not using AI for herbal research. Maybe a little bit, but that's gonna get folks in trouble, especially if you are already not well studied in the plans, because AI is wrong, because humans are wrong. So really leveraging AI for the business and the administrative and some of like the content creation ideas, the brainstorming, to get you further faster in this work. And then really answers to all the questions that I know we didn't get answers to, or all the things that are like, nobody talks about this. We talk about it because we're pretty open books.
We are, but it's really that one-on-one, getting your specific question answered. I think that there's real value in being like, here is my question. Can you please answer this specific question so that it clicks in my mind and I can go forward? I know that you've had a lot of talks with people from a business perspective that you answered their specific question, and that was just like a thank you, right? Now I get it. And they just go, and you're just like, oh wow, fantastic.
But I thought you were gonna go to, because I like made a face, was we've talked to so many different business coaches, and I know like every business coach says it's gonna work for your industry too. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be open. It's gonna work for our business too. And no, there is something very unique about herbalism. So to have someone who is aligned with the industry that you're in, actually offering the solutions and the advice, and the blueprint that we need for our industry, I think is really, really valuable. It's definitely something that we wish we had. And I just love talking about business. I love helping, and then seeing how seeing how people grow. And it's like, yes, especially if you do it. Don't sign up if you're not gonna do it. Do it, and it's like, they're doing it.
Yeah, because everyone that has signed up, not for this particular one, but for any coaching with you, any business coaching, you're like, oh wow.
Like, she's doing it.
Like, you're over that hump. Whatever that hump was for them,
right?
They're over that hump. And you're like, all right.
Because like, we need us.
Excited. It's important.
The world really needs us. Like, I keep tabs on just some of the things that are going on in the health industry. And we serve a very important role. We started the call with that.
Yeah.
We serve a very important role in healthcare, and the way things are going, we're going to be needed now more than ever.
Yeah.
So I am all for more herbalists winning, getting their skills up, and building sustainable ecosystems for yourself, for your family, for this work that we're doing. It's sad to learn about other herbalists who are closing their businesses because they couldn't.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, couldn't make it work.
Right.
So that is a really cool offer. Only 3, and if you're on our email list, the email is in your inbox. So check that out. VIP, like business strategy for herbalists, 1-on-1, 6 hours. Let's go.
And if you're not on our email list, you can always email us at help@iwillaremedy.com.
All right, y'all. We gotta go pick up the boss.
Because he's the boss.
The real boss.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the boy, because I was like, he's the boss.
Yeah, no, the real boss is our 10-year-old, and we have to go pick him up
from school.
So we'll do a part 3. Thanks for hanging out with us. Feel free to hit us up on all the platforms and email if you want. All right.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.